So, let's dig into Allusion Pending by DewOnTheGrass, as I know you. A bigger pen. By... Is it DewOnGrass or DewOnTheGrass? I don't remember. I think it's the DewOnTheGrass. So okay. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Allusion Pending. In brackets. A picture speaks 1,000 words. I gather up your minds, a thought to steal, a will to gain, and once begun reprise. Am I the same as thoughts on page, or sights beheld and lost, an ideated nemophage? I change at zero cost. Reverse, okay. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when others' words are not. Mirror. Come back to me, my beamish boy. I know you less each day. You speak in pure illusion, coy, protected, self-ashamed. It's a word you made up. Yeah. It's very cool. Who and where and what are you? To seem and not to be, you blindly search and latch onto ideas of minds more free. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when, through others' eyes, you see. Okay, this is different. This is cool. This is much more, metaphorical. I tend to write a little more like this, which is very exciting. It's super exciting to get things like Nico's work and Asher's work, which are different, but I'm also, like, kind of stoked about the, this vibe, too. This is fun. The autism makes me struggle with free verse. Hence the meter. Makes sense. Yeah. So mine ends up a little more free, but similar in its metaphorical nature. You have ADHD. I think we need to make a really non-scientific and cancelable like video on associating different mental illnesses with different styles of writing. The autism stricter verse, the ADHD free and conversational, the if we want to go in my direction, the I don't know, bipolar manic noises, which I sometimes do. That'd be fun. I love humor, so thank you for the David Sedaris rec again. DewOnTheGrass is the best. I love his sister's work too. Amy Sedaris. I don't know any of these Sedarises. Someone should submit one for me to read sometime. Maybe one of each. Anyway. Let's read this again. They're effing talented and funny. I love funny. Very nice. Let's read this again. Yes. Allusion Pending. A picture speaks 1,000 words. I gather up... I'm tired. Sorry. Coffee. Yesterday's coffee. Yesterday's cold black coffee. Allusion Pending. A picture speaks 1,000 words. I gather up your minds. A thought to steal, a will to gain, and once again reprise. Am I the same as thoughts on page, or sights beheld and lost? An ideated memophage, mnemonic, right? M-N, mnemonic, so mnemophage? We're gonna get it next time. Mnemophage. I change at zero cost. Speaking one's own mind is a challenging thing when others' words are not. Mirror. Come back to me, my beamish boy. I know you less each day. You speak in pure illusion, coy, protected, self-ashamed. Who and where and what are you to seem and not to be? You blindly search and latch onto ideas of minds more free. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when through others' eyes you see. Okay. The mirror is a really interesting idea, and I think this is so cool. I think this is so freaking cool that we have a mirror here. I'm gonna read it again. I'm stoked for this one. Allusion Pending. Fascinating title, too. A picture speaks 1,000 words. I gather up your minds. A thought to steal, a will to gain, and once begun, reprise. Am I the same as thoughts on page, or sights beheld and lost? An ideated mnemophage. I change at zero cost. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when others' words are not. Mirror. Come back to me, my beamish boy. I know you less each day. You speak in pure illusion, coy, protected, self-ashamed. Who and where and what are you to seem and not to be? You blindly search and latch onto ideas of minds more free. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when through others' eyes you see. You couldn't get the mirror part. We're going to explain the mirror part. Because these two sections are mirrored. This and this, I mean, they're not exactly mirrored, right? If they were mirrored, this would be, like, up there. Which maybe is something to consider, switching these so they're truly mirrored. But we have this idea of, to quickly explain the mirror, speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when other words are not. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing through others' eyes you see. So you have these two kind of opposing ideas, and then the picture speaking words, right? And then being more critical of words, illusion, it's coy, they see it. And then this idea of wanting them to be something while they change at zero cost. That's kind of the mirror that I'm seeing, but we will dig further into it. But to me, the mirror is talking about these two parts of the poem, particularly because the verse is also the same, right? So, but let's see. So I'm gonna sort of maybe analyze these things in parallel as mirrored. And to start with, speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when others' words are not. Words are not. Not what, right? So it's just that the words are not. They're either non-existent or not understandable or lying, right? Those are ways that a word might be not. You know? Not challenging? Are you referring to this as not challenging? Regardless, one thing I will say, DewOnTheGrass, is when I am analyzing, I prefer, if that's an explanation, to first do as much of the analysis without your additional context or input, unless there's things that need to be like changed in the poem, like, oh, this needs to be capitalized, that word is misspelled. But otherwise, I'd prefer that I be able to come to my complete analysis first. And that's just my way of doing things. We did that with Sainiri. And I do the same when I share with people. It's a personal preference. No worries, no need to apologize, I didn't explain. I tend to give people my poems, and I do not explain anything. They'll say, what does this mean, after they read it? And I'll say, what does this mean, back to them. And I say, I don't know, I'm asking you. And I'm like, no. Read here, tell me what's going on. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, do you like it or not? And I'm like, well, I like this part, I don't like this part. I'm like, why? And I make people analyze. Because partly I'm teaching people to not go to others for the answers on their work and find those themselves, right? So, both when I share with people and in this case when things are shared with me. So that's all. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when others' words are not. So I do see that now, the connection, since you said others' words are not a challenging thing. This idea of speaking and maybe not being spoken back to. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when through others' eyes you see. So, to me, I think this is referring to, blindly searching, ideas of minds more free, not being yourself, speaking in illusion, coy, this criticism of the other side, saying that you are not speaking in a sort of as yourself. And this side is saying, speaking my mind, which is myself, is challenging because you are telling me that this is not me, and my words and your words are not challenging. You're not at my, perhaps, speaking, you're not understanding me, perhaps. So we have these two sides, and that's kind of their thesis statement, I guess. Scary word, thesis. But it's a good word. A thesis is a good thing to think about when analyzing, which is your opinion, your point. So I realized the other day, there's a fountain pen here. which I think it's okay. It's kind of neat. Anyway, so your thesis is your opinion, your point, your perspective, all of that, right? The thing that you're trying to convince another person of, it's all of this. Perhaps even like your moral, your message. This is all your thesis. And then we have two sides with two different theses. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when others' words are not. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing through others' eyes you see. Right? And they are in opposition. And sometimes in a poem it is very useful, particularly a very metaphorical poem, to say, to ask the question, what is your thesis to the poem, or in your own poem, right? What are they trying to say? This is important because when we have a lot of difficult words, a lot of abstraction, a lot of allusion, perhaps, right? It can be a tricky thing to understand the message. So if we have a simple question, a goal of what does that thesis mean, it can help us, right? Oh no, not the bots. Yeah. Oh my gosh, hold on. Oh, the chat doesn't update on this side. It's annoying. Can I ban it from here? I can do a slash ban. Slash, no, yeah, ban valid grotto. Cooked. Get out of here. So, what is your thesis, right? And I think in this case it might be useful. Bot obliterated. Yeah, feels really good. So we say, what is the thesis? And it can be an important way to dig into something very sort of heady. I feel this poem's pretty heady. I mean, you can get bogged down in things like nemophage and ideated and big words. Just a thought to steal, a will to gain, and once begun reprise. Like, that's difficult. You speak in pure illusion, coy, protect itself ashamed. Like, that's not a self-evident sentence. So much as something like, I don't know, Nico's what the fuck was I thinking? Very different styles. Neither one better than the other, but they take different approaches, right? Where I don't need to know what Nico is trying to tell me, and I can just appreciate Nico's words. In this case, I get some amount of that enjoyment from trying to figure out what you're trying to tell me. It just leads me to a different sort of appreciation, right? So this is one notable tool in our toolkit, I guess. So we've gone through lots of ideas, tension, release, and now I guess the idea of thesis and message. This is not something I have written down anywhere, my process or my tools, which maybe someone should compile someday, right? Or I should. But, you know, if y'all are taking notes in your notebooks at home, then maybe you're already starting to compile this. It'd be wild if any of you were actually, like, taking notes as to what I was saying on stream. I think that would be really cute. Make it, like, class. regardless, the lecture will be posted online. A picture speaks 1,000 words. Okay. I gather up your minds. A thought to steal, a will to gain, and once begun, reprise. So, another thing is when we use words in sort of non-traditional situations, it can be useful to look them up. Reprise, meaning a repeated passage in music, right? The reprise, or a repeat, right? A thought to steal, a will to gain, and once begun, reprise. Interesting. So, replay, right? Am I the same as thoughts on page? Or sights beheld and lost? An ideated nemophage, I change at 0 cost. So, something useful. I know you already explained it, but if we don't know what something means, nemo, this is probably Greek, right? Greek root. Roots and prefixes and stuff from Greek and Latin are very useful in understanding things we don't know. So in this case, because you said it's a made-up word is all I remember. So, mnemonic, mnemosign, neme, which means remembrance or memory, right? And then phage, if you recognize them, you can see phage is it's not phage, root. Phage, root, Greek. Phage. Okay. Phage, to eat. Right? So what is that? To eat or devour. So a nemophage, which honestly sounds like a card in like Magic the Gathering or like a D&D monster. A nemophage. That would be alongside like a mind flayer, you know? A nemophage is something that, like a mind flayer, sort of. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna draw this good. Like a D&D mind flayer, if you're familiar, grabs onto people's heads, with like tentacles, and then like sucks out their brains, and eats their memories and stuff. So a nemophage would be this guy. Something, an eater of memories. Eater, really bad picture. Eater of memories is a nemophage. I change at 0 cost. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when others' words are not. Okay. This is tricky, so it might take me a bit. Am I the same as thoughts on page? So again, this connects now that we know. Our nemophagism connects to perhaps gathering up minds, stealing thoughts, and maybe even being the same as thoughts on page. This idea perhaps of the information, the experiences we have that make us up, which might be sort of referring down here. Who and where and what are you? blindly search and latch onto the ideas of minds more free. So this idea of our understanding of the world, maybe relying on the ideas and thoughts of others, right? I'm still which is interesting. That's our like main point maybe in the first half, or just our first idea is the relation of a person to ideas and writing and art of others, we'll say. And I'm saying art because we have reprise, specifically a musical word. We have a picture speaking words. We have thoughts on a page. Mirror, come back to me, my beamish boy. I know you less each day. You speak in pure illusion, coy, protected, self-ashamed. Who and where and what are you to seem and not to be? You blindly search and latch onto ideas of minds more free. That's interesting. So we have this idea of freedom, changing at zero cost, and minds more free. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when through others' eyes you see. Notably, it's also a mirror, right? Mirror, seeing. So that's interesting. Oh, my neck is sore. So, I still don't know, like, the thesis, what this poem is trying to say, but I know we have tension. And I'm going to talk about an idea of mine. Experience. So, experience. My life is perhaps the sum of my experiences. That's the mathematical symbol for summation. That is to say, every book that I've read, every person I've met, every photo I've seen and taken, every word I've spoken, right? Every dream I've had, these are my experiences. Now, if I take all of these together and remember them, or don't, what we don't remember is still part of our experience, that is life. It's a decent understanding. It tends to be what I think. And to me, this poem is asking about that. This is a person who maybe wants to consume ideas and art and be a nemophage. Take others' experiences, and we want to take them and experience them and maybe even maximize how much we do that. Eating memory, eating experience. This is how I described my life for a while. I like to listen to music. And for a while, I would only listen to music once. Like a new album would come out, and I would be following a ton of artists and musicians, and I would just find new music or music that I had not listened to before. I would listen to it once, and then I'd be done. Literally, one and done. Right? And this, to me, this is my understanding. See you later, Nico. See you later. Of being this, like, nemophage. I was obsessed with this. In college as a music major. Thanks again for analyzing your poem. Of course. I had an obsession with learning and finding new things and bolstering my experience. Because theoretically, every time I experience something, I'm making a new one, and that is giving me more of a life, right? This is a plus sign. Right? Plus experience. And I was this like monster of listening to music. And I did the same thing with books too. And just consuming. So that those could be made part of me. Reprised inside my mind. And you start to ask, am I the same as the thoughts on the page? Of course, my experience is based on that. But at what point do I start to lose some sense of self as a person? And people losing their beamish boy. I think this is referring to that person. Knowing less, speaking in illusion, coy, protected, self-ashamed, hiding, in this case, the person that's inside one's own thoughts and opinions and experiences to just experience what is up here as a nemophage. Who and where and what are you? To seem and not to be. You blindly search and latch onto ideas of minds more free. To seem. Oops. To seem. To me, seeming. One, to like seem to exist, but also to seem as into sort of be experiencing. To be constantly taking ideas, and yet to myself, or Nemosage's self, stop really being a person. Who are you now? You search and latch onto ideas of minds more free. More free, perhaps, because these are minds that are not so obsessed by this consumption. Which maybe is what is allowing them to make art that you consume. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when through others' eyes you see. Again, at a certain point, when do I lose this? When do I stop seeing as myself and I see as the summation of those who I structure my life around, of Bukowski and my viewers and my stream and Kafka and Crane and Kron and Nabokov and Le Guin, right? These are all things I experience, right? Through others' eyes I see. In fact, these ideas that I'm telling you now, we're getting really like philosophical with this, are just based on other things I've read, other things I've experienced, and it's sort of reprising and circling back onto all of you, the world, right? And that's sort of a discussion that I like to have. And it's why I encourage you all to be doing art when you're on my stream. The sort of axis. Let's do a graph. I like graphs. Because I'm a nerd. Okay. An axis. We're getting very like mathematical in the way we're talking about things. This is something I do. Y-axis is creation. X-axis is consumption. Negative creation maybe doesn't exactly exist. Negative consumption. Okay, this negative creation might exist. Negative consumption isn't really a thing, right? But, so, this is 0. We are not consuming any art. No art. And this is consuming, let's say, all of our time consuming art. That's all we're doing. Necessarily, if we're only consuming art, this is the point on the graph. We are not creating anything. So all of our time is here. If we're not consuming any art, if we haven't experienced anything, we probably don't understand creation is a guess. But then as we consume more and start to understand, there's a chance that we start to create. Right? And create more, and at some point, right, we go up in our creation, but then at some point we start to consume too much art that we end up coming back down to this point. And I don't know what this graph looks like. This graph could look like that. The graph could be here. It's different for every person. Let's use other colors. It could be irregular, you know, whatever. In fact, the graph could look something like this. Could be here with negative creation being destroying of the art that we're consuming, right? But everyone has their own balance here, right? Where you need to consume some amount of art, and that can help you create. But then depending on how much you're consuming, it could end up leading to a fall off in actual creation, right? Some people have a maximum amount. They just have a different, different artistic output kind of limit. That doesn't mean that they're like less valuable. This has nothing to do with quality, right? Some people can output a lot of art. Some people can stream for, only 1 hour. Some people can stream for 8. Doesn't really matter, right? And part of being an artist is finding the balance that lets you sort of create as much as you want to while also consuming an amount of art that you want to. Because if we take a look at this blue line, this person needs to consume a small amount of art, or else they kind of get lost in it and start to create less. But maybe they actually really like reading and listening to music, and they want to be somewhere around here. You're consuming more, you're creating less. This has nothing to do with quality, right? How much we enjoy it. This doesn't have a joy axis. And this poem is maybe an indication of, creating or consuming a lot of art. Right? And in an extent, maybe enjoying it, maybe not. But that it's not leading to creation, and it's also sort of maybe a difficult thing, even just for the other people around you, losing the beamish boy who they know less, who's self-ashamed, right? And So we ask a question as an artist. When do I go make stuff? Right? Right now, you all, if you're not making things on stream right now while watching me, you are consuming art entirely and not creating at all. This is where probably a good portion of my chat is. Some of them are consuming less of my stream and maybe creating something. It could be anywhere, you know. And to some extent, you could be here in relation to the Twitch stream. You could turn off the stream and go make art. That's what I want you all to do. If you can be here and not be watching my stream, that's great. But, so this poem is maybe talking about the tension between experiencing art and creation and how it affects us and the people around us, and the sort of obsession and addiction that art becomes. We've talked about that before, where art can capture you and art can pull you in, and others' words and others' thoughts, and make you an addict to this. You have to eat it. It's like food. You're a nemophage. But is it good? And maybe this side's thesis is saying, no, it's not. This side's thesis is saying that others' words are not challenging. Maybe my words have come to a point where they're just beyond yours, or like intelligence in a sense. But the entire poem, by existing and showing the mirror of these things, our thesis is to say, which it's not a point, but it's begging a question, not begging a question, asking a question. How does my experience, or what I decide to experience, what I decide to experience, how does that relate to my life, and particularly my relationships in this poem? Because you have this mirrored other person. It also could be a mirrored internal person who's telling you that. But DewOnTheGrass, I guess that's sort of my analysis. So you can see this one's a little more abstract. But I wasn't necessarily digging too much into what each word or image was saying, as much as some of the broader ideas. But that's kind of what I think about it. Right? And I have no idea if that's anything like your interpretation, and that's okay, because it's my interpretation, and it's valid as such. But that is kind of what I think about Allusion Pending. So, thank you for sending it. I'm gonna read it again, right? And then that'll be the end of like my part of the analysis, and then if you have any comments, we can talk about that too. So, Allusion Pending. A picture speaks 1,000 words. I gather up your minds, a thought to steal, a will to gain, and once begun, reprise. Am I the same as thoughts on page? Or sights beheld and lost? An ideated nemophage, I change at zero cost. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when others' words are not. Mirror. Come back to me, my beamish boy. I know you less each day you speak in pure illusion, coy. protected, self-ashamed. Who and where and what are you to seem and not to be? You blindly search and latch onto ideas of minds more free. Speaking one's mind is a challenging thing when through others' eyes you see. Allusion Pending by DewOnTheGrass. Thank you. If you're still around. Any comments? I guess I should ask, am I allowed to put this on YouTube? Listed or unlisted? I feel painlessly vivisected. You hit the thesis in the first 5 minutes, and it hadn't even occurred to me until then. I never noticed the misunderstanding between the two subjects as such, but it really hit home. I may. Well, I'm glad I sort of, well, vivisected you. It's a great word. I was actually thinking recently I want to write a poem that uses vivisect. I may. It sounds like it's maybe clarified some of what you wrote for you, and I'm very happy if that's the case. But thank you so much for sharing. This poem is super cool, super technical. You have the verse, you have these very kind of heady ideas of how we relate to consumption and art and all these things, and I think it's beautiful. I was uncertain at a certain point whether I should say mirror. I almost wanted, if I had a microphone stand, if I had a microphone here, I would perform it speaking this way as to another person, get to the middle and make a big show of turning around and being the other person, and I might not even say mirror, if that makes sense, but I don't know. That's just how that would be very cool, right? Something you could also do, if we're talking about formatting, if I wanted just ideas, I have lots of, this poem gives me ideas. You could structure these as side by side, with a vertical line in between. Oops. So this one here, and then instead of mirror, put the other one next to it, and then have a vertical line labeled mirror, because then they are actually mirrored sort of correctly, if you will, right? Because a mirror would have the parts that are the same, kind of closest to each other, right? And then if you wanted to really have fun and you split it down the middle of the page, your two sections, you could have your alignment on the text with this one being aligned to that side, like so, and then this one being aligned there. So then they're both going out from the mirror. Could be cool. Alternatively, you could do the alignment so that this one is aligned to that margin on the page, right? And then this one is aligned to the opposite margin of the page, if we're talking cool formatting, to have the actual mirror, or both. You could also have them both center aligned. Again, makes the mirror thing work, right? But I think those are cool ideas if you're looking to do some formatting, because I like formatting my poems in cool ways. So that's just a thought that comes to mind, but it's a really awesome poem. And thank you so much. Yes. Again, thank you. Awesome to have you, submitting, being in this community. Your work is beautiful thus far, and I hope to see more. That's excellent. All my final drafts are in TXT format. That's fair. Sometimes it's just about the words. But I have a poem, for example, or I have multiple. So I'm gonna do this. Allusion Let's show you a couple poems that I have pending. It's actually a bunch. If we want to talk about formatting and ideas, you could definitely use the tab key for that. Well, that's a pain. Like, that is a lot of tab. So I have Coffee, which is a poem formatted interestingly. I'm not gonna read this all for you, but it's a conversation with two sides going back and forth, and then certain like just static things in the middle. So that's like an idea of, formatting. I also have wherever the two sides is, side A, side B. No, it's called side B, side A. And then you can see in like the actual thumbnail on Google Drive that they're split on this one, but like that. Love how much screen time Brad is getting. Once again, I hope he's getting compensated. I've not been compensating my lamp for his contributions to stream. Brad is an unpaid laborer, but he's here as a volunteer. He wants to be. Trust me. Although I've never actually asked him, and I won't. I have something called like Some More Poems. No, none of those. I have another poem somewhere called To You, I believe. To You. Not seeing it. A bunch of RPG systems here. But formatting can be a really powerful thing. And I take like the exact same text and sort of place them side by side, formatted differently. Okay. Messages. Love how those look. Definitely bookmarking this VOD. Have to dash to D&D. Enjoy D&D. I have D&D later today as well. Thank you again for streaming. That was marvelous. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of why this stream can be marvelous. I think this stream is nowhere near as marvelous as it can be, or as it is without all of you submitting your work. So, super thankful that you came by.